The green room was smaller than anyone remembered. A couch with worn cushions, a table with bottled water and fruit that nobody touched, fluorescent lights that made everyone look older than they were. Jackson Browne stood near the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at nothing in particular. Behind him, voices overlapped, managers, promoters, old bandmates catching up after years apart. Everyone was there, everyone except the decision that had already been made but not yet spoken. The reunion tour had been in the works for months. Contracts signed, venues booked, publicity photos scheduled for that afternoon. It was supposed to be easy money, a victory lap, a chance to play the old songs for crowds who remembered every word. The kind of thing that made sense on paper. The kind of thing everyone said yes to without thinking too hard about why. But Jackson hadn't slept the night before. He'd sat in his hotel room with the lights off, guitar in his lap, playing nothing, just holding it, feeling the weight of it, thinking about the last time they'd all been in a room together, thinking about what had happened then, thinking about what this reunion was supposed to mean and what it actually meant. Someone called his name. He turned. It was David, the drummer, gray at the temples now, but still carrying himself like he had something to prove. David smiled, walked over, clapped Jackson on the shoulder. "Can you believe we're doing this? Feels like we never stopped." Jackson nodded but didn't say anything. David kept talking, about the set list, about which songs would go over best, about how the younger guys in the crew didn't understand what it had been like back then, when the music meant something, when they were building something that felt bigger than all of them. Jackson listened, watched David's face, saw the excitement there, the need, and underneath it, something else, something that looked like hope, like this reunion was more than just a tour, like it was a second chance at something they'd lost. Across the room, the promoter was on his phone, pacing, nodding at whatever he was hearing. He caught Jackson's eye and gave him a thumbs up. Everything on track, everything going according to plan. Except it wasn't. The band had broken up 12 years ago. Not cleanly, not with handshakes and well wishes. It had fractured. Slowly at first, then all at once. Egos, money, creative differences, the usual reasons bands fall apart. But underneath all that was something more personal, a betrayal that no one talked about, but everyone remembered. David had gone behind Jackson's back, made a deal, cut him out of something that was supposed to be shared. And when Jackson found out, he didn't yell, didn't fight, just quietly walked away, stopped returning calls, let the band dissolve rather than force something that felt broken. They hadn't spoken since. Not really. A few awkward exchanges at industry events, polite nods across crowded rooms, but nothing real, nothing that addressed what had happened. And now here they were, about to spend 3 months on a bus together, pretending none of it mattered, pretending time had healed what it had only buried. The door opened. The tour manager walked in with a clipboard. "Photo shoot in 15. Everyone ready?" Heads nodded. People stood, started moving toward the door. Jackson stayed by the window. The tour manager looked at him. "Jackson, we good?" "Yeah," Jackson said. "Give me a minute." The room emptied. Just him now. And David, who'd hung back, leaning against the doorframe. "You okay, man?" Jackson turned, looked at him, really looked at him. David's smile had faded. There was something cautious in his expression now, like he knew something was coming but wasn't sure what. "I don't think I can do this," Jackson said. David blinked. "Do what? The photo shoot? We can push it back if you need the tour, the reunion, all of it." The words hung in the air between them. David straightened up, crossed his arms. "What are you talking about? We're hours away from announcing this thing. I know. We've got contracts, deposits. People are counting on this. I know. David stepped into the room, closed the door behind him. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, harder. Then what's the problem? Jackson didn't answer right away. He looked down at his hands, thought about how to say what he was feeling without making it sound like an accusation, without turning this into the fight they'd never had. It doesn't feel right, he said finally. What doesn't feel right? This. Us. Pretending like everything's fine when it's not. David's jaw tightened. That was 12 years ago, Jackson. You really going to bring that up now? I'm not bringing it up. It never went away. We just stopped talking about it. Because there's nothing to talk about. I made a business decision. You didn't like it. Fine. But we're not kids anymore. We're supposed to be professionals. Is that what this is? Professional? David threw his hands up. What do you want from me? You want me to apologize? Fine. I'm sorry. There. Can we move on now? Jackson shook his head. Not in refusal, just in sadness. It's not about an apology. It's about whether we should be doing this at all. Why wouldn't we? Because it's not real. We're getting back together because it makes financial sense, because people will pay to see it, not because we have anything left to say to each other, not because the music matters anymore. David stared at him. Something shifted in his expression, the defensiveness giving way to something rawer. The music always mattered to me. I know it did. That's what made it hurt. The room went quiet. Outside, voices called to each other, equipment being moved, the machinery of the tour grinding forward. Inside, two men standing in a too-bright room, facing something they'd avoided for over a decade. I thought you were over it, David said. His voice was softer now, almost vulnerable. I thought enough time had passed. Time doesn't fix things by itself. It just makes them easier to ignore. So what then? You're just going to walk away? Blow up the whole tour? I don't want to blow anything up. I just don't want to lie. Lie about what? About what this is. We're not a band anymore. We're a brand. A nostalgia act. People will come see us because they want to remember who they were when they first heard these songs. And that's fine. But I can't stand on stage and pretend I'm that person, that we're those people. Because we're not. And trying to be is just sad. David looked away, ran a hand through his hair. When he looked back, there was something defeated in his eyes. I needed this, Jackson. I'm not where you are. I don't have solo albums or other projects. This was supposed to be my way back, and you're taking it away. Jackson felt the weight of that, felt the guilt pressing down on his chest. I'm not trying to take anything from you. I'm just trying to be honest. Honest about what? That you're better than this? That you've moved on and the rest of us haven't? No. Honest about the fact that we can't go back, that trying to recreate something that's gone doesn't bring it back. It just reminds you that it's gone. David was quiet for a long time. Then he said, So that's it? You just done? Jackson nodded. Yeah, I think I am. What about everyone else? The other guys, the crew, the people who turned down other gigs for this? I know. And I'm sorry. But staying and going through the motions, that's worse. That's using people. At least this way, they can make other plans. David laughed, but there was no humor in it, just bitterness. You always did think you were the moral center of this band. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Jackson thought about that, tried to find words that wouldn't sound self-righteous or cruel. It's me recognizing that some things can't be fixed, and that's okay. We don't have to keep trying. The door opened. The tour manager again. Guys, we really need to... He stopped, looks between them, read the room. Is there a problem? Jackson turned to him. Yeah, there is. I'm out. Out? What do you mean, out? I mean, I'm not doing the tour. I'm sorry. I know this creates problems, but I can't do it. The tour manager's face went through several expressions at once. Confusion, anger, panic. You're not serious. I am. Do you have any idea what this means? The liability? The lawsuits? I'll deal with that, but I'm not changing my mind. The tour manager looked at David. Did you know about this? David shook his head, didn't look at Jackson, just stared at the floor. Jesus Christ. The tour manager pulled out his phone. I need to make some calls. He left. The door swung shut. Jackson and David stood in the silence that followed. Finally, David spoke. You could have told me sooner. I know. You could have saved me the humiliation of finding out in front of everyone. You're right. I should have. David nodded, looked at Jackson one more time. There was something in his eyes that might have been understanding, or might have been resignation. Hard to tell. I hope you know what you're doing. I don't, but I know what I'm not doing. David left. Jackson stood alone in the green room with the worn couch and the untouched fruit and the fluorescent lights. He could hear chaos erupting outside. Voices raised, phones ringing, the sound of something carefully constructed falling apart. He sat down, put his head in his hands, felt the enormousness of what he'd just done. The people he'd disappointed, the money he'd walk away from, the relationships that were probably over now, all of it pressing down on him like a physical weight. But underneath all that, there was something else, something lighter, a sense of having finally told the truth after years of pretending, of having chosen integrity over comfort. It didn't make the guilt go away, but it made it bearable. His phone buzzed, text messages coming in. He didn't look at them, just sat there in the quiet, thinking about the last time he'd played those songs. Really played them, not for an arena full of people, just for himself, in his living room, late at night, when nobody was listening except him. They'd sounded different then, smaller, but more real, like they meant what they were supposed to mean, like they came from somewhere true. He wondered if David would understand that, if any of them would, or if they'd just see this as Jackson being difficult, Jackson thinking he was too good for a nostalgia tour, Jackson letting them all down. Maybe that's how it would look. Maybe there was no way to do this without being the villain in someone else's story. But he'd learned something over the years, something that took a long time to figure out. You can't make everyone understand your choices. You can't explain your way into their approval. Sometimes you just have to do what feels true and accept that some people will be hurt by it, will be angry, will think less of you. And you have to live with that. The door opened again, a young woman with a headset, probably an assistant to someone. Mr. Browne, they're asking if you need anything. He looked up, shook his head. No, I'm okay, thank you. She hesitated. Is it true that you're not doing the tour? Yeah, it's true. Can I ask why? He thought about how to answer that, how to explain something that barely made sense to him. Because sometimes the best way forward is to stop going backward. She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. She left. Jackson stood up, walked to the window. Outside, a city moved through its afternoon, people going places, living lives that had nothing to do with reunion tours or broken bands or decisions that surprised everyone involved. He thought about David, about the look on his face when Jackson said he was out, the hurt there, the betrayal. And he wondered if walking away made him the same as David had been 12 years ago. If choosing himself over the group was just another version of what had broken them apart in the first place. Maybe it was. Maybe there was no clean way to do this, no version where everyone came out okay. But he also knew this. He couldn't spend 3 months on a bus pretending to be someone he wasn't anymore. Couldn't stand on stages and play the hits and smile for crowds while feeling hollow inside. Couldn't trade his peace for their nostalgia. And maybe that made him selfish. Maybe it made him the bad guy. But it also made him honest. He picked up his jacket, walked out of the green room, down the hallway, past people who stared, who whispered, who already had opinions forming about what this meant and who was to blame. He kept walking, out of the building, into the afternoon light, where the air was cooler than he expected, and the sky was that particular shade of blue that made everything feel both infinite and temporary at the same time. He got in his car, drove away from the venue, away from the tour that wouldn't happen, away from the reunion that had ended before it began. And as he drove, something settled in his chest. Not happiness, exactly, but something close. Something that felt like being aligned with himself again. Like the person driving and the person inside were finally pointing in the same direction. He didn't know what would happen next, what the fallout would be, what it would cost him in relationships and opportunities and whatever reputation he'd built. But he knew this. He'd walked away from something that would have hollowed him out. And in doing so, he'd walked toward something harder to name, but easier to live with. The choice had surprised everyone involved, maybe even himself. But it was the right choice. Not because it made anyone happy, not because it solved anything, but because it was true. And sometimes, that had to be enough.